Hello and welcome. This is the introduction for my HIST 140 U.S. History to 1877 courses for the fall at Johnson County Community College. Hi, if you're seeing this or you're in my class, my name is Derek Taylor. I am your professor for this semester. And this is for both of my sections. I have two sections, so both you guys get to see my mug, at least here anyway. So this is just to introduce you to the course, go with the parameters of the course, talk about what's going to be required of you. You get entrepot into the course and get that done, so you know what to do, and you can go get started. And so we're gonna go and share with you here the screen for our Canvas landing page for the course. This is where you'll access all the work for the course. If you're not, should be available to you already if you've signed up for the course. And so you have the little thing here you should have clicked on to say, hey, please read me. Up here you have the syllabus, and then you're going to have, as you're going to see, you're going to have the modules that go through basically each thing you need to do in the course. We'll go to that back in a second. So this is where you'll find everything in the course. You can contact me through either through Canvas or through my JCCC email address. That's basically all we need to do there. So let me go over the syllabus. You can find actually there in the module. And yeah, my name is Derek Taylor. You have there in the syllabus my actually that phone number is not current. My office number is something else. I never check my office phone though, so don't bother. You just email me. I will usually get back to you pretty soon. If it's something an emergency, I'll get back to you quicker. But I guess you can leave a message with me at the office. But I definitely will get back to you from my email address, which is up there. Office hours, I'm not on campus this semester. All my classes are online. I will meet on campus if you like. I know most of you are in the area who are taking it this semester. Section number, CRN number, all that sort of good stuff. So you have my name up there, Derek Taylor, PhD, your professor here. So this is an introductory survey to American history from its beginnings, before its beginnings actually, to the colonial period when Europeans colonized the American continents, all the way up to Reconstruction period just following the US Civil War. And so you're gonna be reading a lot in this course. You're gonna read lots of primary and secondary sources, as you'll see. And an introductory survey just gives you a survey of all the major events, changes, social, economic, whatever, military in the United States during this period. So basic overview. Hopefully you'll be familiar with and remember some of this at the end of the course with methods of historical research, what primary and secondary sources are, and try to give you some analytical skills, how to analyze texts, compare them, contrast them, all other stuff through tests and written work in the course. Again, trying to get you to understand historical documents in their historical context, interpret them that way, to get you to not think so much in terms of anachronism. You know what that word means, anachronism? That means projecting your beliefs from one historical era that you live in onto those in the past, and try to get you to see things from the way people in the past perceive things. And we do that through looking at primary records, which if you don't know what primary sources are, those are sources that are from the period you're studying. They're written by people involved. If you're studying the American Revolution, they're written by people like George Washington and John Adams and stuff like that. And then secondary historical documents are works by modern historians who build their histories from those primary sources. That's how academic historians do this. You can write a history yourself using nothing but modern historians' works, but it tend to be assumed to be more trustworthy to get sources from the people who are involved in the event normally. So doing those things is part of this, and just knowing important people, events, trends, American history, major developments across the period. Again, don't expect you to be able to recite this stuff chapter and verse after you've gotten out of college, but to know some of it when it comes back to you. You'll want to know things, by the way. Some of you haven't started paying taxes yet in your life. I had a friend of mine tell me a few years ago, I didn't care about history. When I started, I actually said, when I started caring about history, when I started having to pay taxes. And you ask, why do I have to pay that? Yeah, this is what this is for. So anyway, basically you have three types of assignments in this course. There will be an online discussion forum every week in this course, going through each of the following the chapters in the textbook you're going to have. And so discussions, quarter of your grade, 25%. There'll be weekly quizzes, chapter a week, basically, quiz a week, essentially in this course. A lot of reading, as you'll see. And then basically 3 short writing assignments. And that's it. So half of your that's 100%, by the way, if you're great, if you didn't get that. And so that's the criteria. It should be later on. The grading scale is a normal one, 190, 89, 80 down the line. Couple of text or several texts are actually required for this course. Lots of reading, like I said. The first is your textbook. This is America, A Concise History, Volume 1 to 1877. I'm asking you to get a particular edition, the 6th edition, partly because it's cheaper. You have to get it used. They have textbooks on campus. They should have the used versions. They're cheaper. They only give you new editions to make you pay more money. It's part of the reason why I do this. So, and I still have the older editions. That's the other reason I'm doing this. But please have that edition so you're lined up page-wise with everybody else, because the newer editions may change things slightly. The second textbook that's required to buy is Elizabeth Cobbs Hoffman, her other editors, of Major Problems in American History, Volume 1 to 1877. America in Concise History is a narrative. It tells you the story, more or less, of the country from colonial times up to the Reconstruction period. Major Problems in American History is a source reader or a document reader, and it gives you primary examples of primary sources from the time periods, all the time periods up to 1877. So it'll be little pieces, excerpts from documents, occasionally images as well in these early books. So we'll give you a taste of what it means to look at primary sources. Not the same thing, you have to go looking for them, it's all in the book for you, but you are getting, part of the goal is to get you to relate these sources in the source reader to the narrative and try to see the connections. Thirdly, as you're going to see, you're going to be required to write a book review of a book. This one is called, and those two, by the way, the first two are available on campus on a JCC bookstore, or you can find them online cheaper. The third one is not, there is one copy available at the JCCD library, but you can probably find it at your local library or definitely from online booksellers. And this is Anne Farrow, Jennifer Frank, and Joel Lang wrote a book back in 2005 called Complicity: How the North Promoted, Prolonged, and Profited from Slavery. This is not an academic work. This is a popular book. It's actually by, all three of them are actually by journalists, which, you know, I never thought I'd be assigning a book by journalists in my course. I don't trust them to do history normally, but somebody recommended it to me. I picked it up, and it's very well written. It's very easy to read, and it told me things I legitimately did not know about slavery and its relationship to the northern states. Actually, it goes back to colonial periods, from northern colonies up to the Civil War, which is very informative. If you don't know the origins of that book, what happened was these three journalists worked for the Hartford Courant up in Hartford, Connecticut, and they were doing research on slavery, and they found out that the Hartford Courant, the newspaper, had actually owned slaves at one point in the 19th century. And so they did a big, you know, multi-page expose in the Hartford Courant. It was so well received, it got put into, you know, used in classrooms in Hartford, that they decided to make a book out of it. This is what this is. And it's, again, it's not an academic work of history. You will read some academic stuff, as we'll see, but it's not a book length. Academic books, they're sometimes called monographs, are really hard to read. And that's why I'm not assigning one to you in this course. I'm trying to give you stuff that might interest you in this course. So that's what this is. And it is interesting. It does talk about things, like I said before, that I had not considered myself. Then finally, you'll also be required to read other texts provided by the instructor. They're all in the modules on campus, and they're just articles mostly, or excerpts from books, as you'll see. I'll go through those in a second. Those are more academic, and so you get shorter, you know, examples. It's a lot of reading in the course. It's a lot of reading, so be prepared. And again, college is a lot of reading. If you can't do that, you're not gonna make it through. So, course evaluation. Discussion. Basically, you're going to be graded on your participation discussion. You need to do two things every week. What you're going to do every week, basically, is you'll have a week's worth of readings assigned to you, a chapter out of the textbook, and usually a chapter in the major problem source reader. go over those. And what you'll do is you'll post a question, a single one, but that which references both the textbook, but also at least one specific source, not the whole chapter, just one specific source, primary or secondary, from the source book. And the whole point of this is to get you to ask a question that sort of involves both the things you've been reading, but also it should be a broad enough question that people can respond to it while still being connected to the reading. So, for example, say for the chapter on the American Revolution, what date did the Americans declare? What date did the Americans declare independence from Britain? That's not a legitimate question. I'll give you a 0 for that, actually. And by the way, you're gonna get graded 12 points for each discussion forum. So you get 4 points for your question. You get 4 points each for 2 responses to your students' questions. That's a minimum, by the way, at least 2. And the point is to get a discussion going. So the question should be broader than merely factual. Don't ask your fellow students about dates or names or nothing like that. Ask them about, for example, get to the chapter on the earlier chapters on the early American Republic. You can ask questions about, say, Thomas Jefferson. Something like, in the textbook, and there's got stuff in the source reader. How did Thomas Jefferson justify owning slaves while being someone who made his career fighting for political liberty? And you can cite something from textbook, it's in there, but it also has primary sources from Thomas Jefferson in the source reader, and connect them somehow. It's your job to find how to connect them. The connections are usually pretty easy, but that's the point, is you can make connections, but it needs to be broad enough that you can get a discussion going. It can be controversial if you like. You need to be polite, of course, to your fellow students in these discussions. I never had a problem with it. People are polite at this college, so it's fine, but that's what it needs to do. And I'll be a stickler for that. Again, no cheap questions. It should be a fairly substantial, thoughtful question, and then respond thoughtfully to your other students' concerns or questions about that stuff. So it's meant to get you to think about the readings and ask good questions, and guys are usually willing enough to respond. I notice in these things. So, and those discussion posts are due on a weekly basis, as indicated in the schedule, which I'll go through in a second. You'll have 15 quizzes, and they're based on the chapters, reading 15 chapters of textbook, but also they'll parallel with the major problem source book. So you'll have quizzes every week. Most of the questions will be over the readings, and over the textbook, and also the source reader. There are no lectures in this course. I won't lecture, so this is more or less sort of guided study this way. I'll be responding, by the way, to your posts in the discussion forum, so I am paying attention to what you're doing there. But that's where you'll interact with me more instead of lectures. You'll also be required to write 3 short writing assignments. 2 other ones I'll talk about in a minute, but one of them, the big one's the book review, and that's the book review of Complicity. It should be a 3 to 4 page book review of Complicity, and the requirements I'll go through this in a second are on Canvas. You just have to answer a few questions about the review and write an actual book review of it. So those are the assignments. Class policies. That one's actually wrong. It should be the 10th. It's actually the 10th book review. But again, discussion posts are due in the dates indicated in discussion modules and the course schedule. Quizzes are also due on the dates they're listed. The book review is due December 10th. That's the last thing you'll turn into the course. For further details, look at the course schedule. Generally speaking, late work I do not accept, unless it's in case of a documented emergency. Death, serious illness, medical crisis, your car blew up, something big. Vacations, work schedules, computer or car troubles. No, you need to, you're doing this online, you don't have to travel anywhere. This should be, you should be ready and available to do this stuff from the start. So keep that in mind. Instructor availability, I've already kind of mentioned this, but yeah, best way to contact me is through email. I'll get back to you. We can also chat if you like. Then use the chat function. You can even see in person. Again, email me. We can meet on campus anytime you like. I do have an office on campus. I forgot to mention it because it's an online course, but I do have an office there. Plagiarism. I do not abide academic dishonesty. Cheating or engaging in any kind of academic dishonesty will result in a failing grade for this assignment you cheated on. all of your work in here, the assignments will be checked by turnitin.com. So we'll be looking for this stuff. And you can be subject to further penalties if I find it's egregious. Mostly it's not. Most of you guys are just being lazy and cutting and pasting things. But I'll still dock you for it. Plagiarism is a form of cheating. I have a definition there. Representing all or part of someone else's work as your own. Copying anything from including wording, no matter how short, from something written by someone else without citing the source. If you're not going to rewrite it, you need to cite it. Very simple. Don't borrow phrases unless they're so generic, nobody can tell the difference from somebody else's work without citing it. Cite what you have drawn from unless you rewrite it, right, in your own words. And that is that. Course schedule. As you're going to see, you're going to hit the ground running from the first week. You'll have, again, first chapter in America and the first chapter of major problems. I give the major problems readings by page number because in a couple of these I'll mix and match stuff from different chapters, but they don't follow each other exactly, in other words. But first, it starts out with the first chapter, and the first topic for discussion is European colonization, the beginning of it. Secondly, is different types of colonies that get founded. Module 2, week 2 in America, it's American experiments. And so you'll have the pages there. The British Atlantic world, start focusing on the British colonies more specifically. Week 4, you get your first set of readings, and I actually should go through this here. We're going to look at this on the in the Canvas site here and show you the readings, because yeah, we're on module 4. You see the due dates, and you'll have in addition to the chapter in the textbook, will be none from the I think there's none from the, let me see for 1 second. Oh yeah, there will be stuff. No, there's none from the major source problem. You'll have a couple of British Empire documents, and the British Empire documents have to do with, as we'll see, there are a couple of different plans for a union of the colonies in the 18th century, proposed by a man named Martin Bladen, who was a British official, and one called the Albany Plan, proposed by Benjamin Franklin in the 1750s during the 7 Years' War. And in fact, we'll show you the writing assignment. It's actually going to use those documents for a writing assignment, which is your first one. I guess we should go back down here too. Comparing primary sources. So the same documents we're reading for that week, you'll be using for this short assignment. And what you'll do for the first assignment is write a 2-page analysis of comparing these two plans for colonial union. Plan to unify the colonies. They very much were not unified, by the way, as you'll see in the readings. The colonies were very jealous of their own self-governments. They didn't get along that well before the American Revolution, actually. And you have a couple of notes on the documents in this assignment 1 module. So if you need more background on that stuff, I'll probably put that in the other modules just so you get a sense of it. But it does have some background to it, because they both have different reasons, do Franklin and this guy Martin Bladen, for wanting to have colonial union, but they're both writing during times of war for the British Empire. So the point of that is to give you some, experience comparing primary sources, but also, a look at the colonial period when America is, there's no America in that sense. We're just part of the British Empire, and everybody thinks you're British. So it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. In week 5, you have American Revolution. Module 6, the week on the Constitution and making of the Constitution and state constitutions. Week 7 goes in the early Republic. Weeks 8 and 9, you'll also have extra readings. In week 8, you're going to have, it's about culture in the earlier American Republic. It's about trying to create Republican mores and Republican ways of life that differ from, colonial Americans had been monarchists. They liked the British monarchy until they didn't, and then they got rid of it. So now they have to create forms of life that are Republican and very different. And that's what this is kind of about. And so I gave you an excerpt from a book by an historian named Joyce Appleby, who was a historian for many years at UCLA out in LA. And it's called Inheriting the Revolution. And it's about the first, as it says, the first generation of Americans. It's about the first generation born after the revolution was completed, and how they adjusted to this new world, how they created the ideas, the customs that defined American life. And I give you the introduction to it's a book. I'm going to give you the whole thing. Introduction to the book and the conclusion, the last chapter. And really all she does is give you lots of anecdotes about what people were doing and how this is different from what their forefathers did and how that differed from what the revolutionaries did. And it's kind of interesting. It gives you an idea of when this American government we take for granted was still new. And it's really interesting to see the possibilities people felt like they had. Today, of course, people feel like they don't have possibilities and they're very upset about it. So of course, people back then, some groups of people didn't have possibilities, which she also talks about. That's the extra reading for that week. Interesting reading. Down here. That was 9. Oh yeah, so that was module 8. Module 9, other extra reading. This is this chapter in your textbook, and therefore this module deals with economics, the coming of industry and the growth of American capitalism in the 19th century. America becoming a great economic power before the Civil War. And so besides the stuff in the Major Problems book and the textbook, I also assigned to you an academic article by one of the great historians of the late 20th century, Gordon Wood, one of the great ones of the last 50. I actually met Gordon Wood once at a conference thingy. Anyway, this is his work, which is called The Enemy is Us, Democratic Capitalism in the Early Republic. And this is actually, this is an article which is called an historiographical essay. That is to say, what Gordon Wood is doing in this essay is he's talking about an issue that academic historians are arguing about. In fact, the first part of the article is him reviewing the different arguments, different groups of historians arguing on different sides of this particular point. And the particular question he's addressing is, was the early republic, when did the early republic become capitalist? Why did it become capitalist? Was it capitalist in the colonial period? Was it not? And he's going to talk about the origins of what he thinks modern capitalism is in the United States himself by the end of the end of the article. It's pretty easy to read. He's a pretty good writer for an academic. That's one of the reasons I gave it to you. But it's also interesting because he talks about the social changes in the early republic, which led to the creation of what we know today. Like our economic life is a free-for-all, or at least that's what I like to think of it anyway. And it was definitely back then. This again was always new. So I gave this to go along with the chapter on economics, give you a more strictly, this is what you would be writing and reading if you went to graduate school to study history, is this sort of thing. And to see if you can follow, because it's hard to follow the arguments. They're very complicated. So to see how you guys do with that. Now we get down, Democratic Revolution, that talks about the coming of universal male suffrage and true democracy in the 19th century. In module 11, you'll have, in addition to your readings for that week, you also have to watch part of a documentary called God in America. This is all called Religion and Reform. And this is about religious changes in the early republic. Both the textbook, source reader, and the documentary. It was done by PBS viewers. I think it was pretty good. About how the unique religious heritage of the United States. It's very different. Again, how it's differed from Europe and its its established churches and stuff like this, and its effect on society. I mean, the United States. You'll see in here one of the things you'll discuss, I'm sure, is the role, and the readings direct you to this. A lot of the reforms we associate with the early republic come directly out of religious movements in the early 19th century. Most notably, of course, the abolitionist movement, which comes directly out of evangelical Christianity. Next week, you have, again, a whole chapter on the South, because of course it develops in a different way, obviously, because of slavery than the rest of the country. Week 13, again, you have the readings. He also gave you another essay, and this is actually a selection from a book. It was written by Michael Holt about a fairly long time ago, but it's a neat little selection. That's why I put it in here for you. on the political divisions that he says contributed to the Civil War. Kids usually get like this one. It's kind of interesting. It's pretty easy to read, makes an interesting argument. So that's an addition there. And the last two, you'll do the last couple of weeks, section on the Civil War and then on Reconstruction. You also have, again, the two other assignments in this course. The second one will be due in November. I'm going to actually write a film review, and I admit I picked this picture to do this for you, quite honestly, to give you something a little easier to do. Then I give you all this reading. I figure, okay, I'll let you go watch a movie. It's a good. I haven't seen it actually. I'm gonna actually watch it with you. So you're gonna have to rent, or otherwise, I guess you can buy it. I won the Oscar for Best Picture. So your assignment is to write a review of 12 Years a Slave, which is a film based on, based on the true life account of Solomon Northrop, who was a free black man from the state of New York, who was kidnapped and sold into slavery in 1841, eventually gets out of it 12 years later. That's the title of the book. And your review of the film, all it's going to do is address how the history presented in the assigned readings for the class informs or does not inform the film. And, address the historical accuracy and authenticity of the film relative to the assigned readings. You have some directions here. Please follow them fairly closely. Again, it's not too difficult. You don't have to do any research for this. I give you a couple of things in the module as background. If you want to cite your textbook, just put the numbers in parentheses there. If you want to do research for this, you can, I guess. Give me a hyperlink if you can do that, but don't cite things like Wikipedia or encyclopedia.com. I'm giving you stuff that's actually pretty good. Actually, I'll show you here. I actually provide a little biography from an academic dictionary on him of Solomon Northrop. It's fairly short. And I give you, if you want some ideas on how to, write a film review guide, which I cribbed from the Duke University's film writing program. So, try to make it as formal as you can. The actual, this isn't a response paper. Don't give me your feelings. I mean, you can mention it, but focus on, the film, the plot, the characters, all those things, what they're doing in terms of cinematography. Break down the film components. But then, tell me, okay, how does this match up with what you read? You can actually find, by the way, you don't have to buy the copy of the book, but if you want to read his actual, or look at anyway, his actual writing, you can find it online for free. You just Google it in, it should come up. So that's the second assignment. And then finally, you have, again, the book review of Complicity. And here, what we're going to do, and you have 4 things to do here. Again, in the review should summarize its contents. And again, summarization isn't just listing a bunch of stuff. Summarize in general what's in it. Maybe a few details, briefly summarize its contents. Identify the thesis. This is something I'll actually ask you to do in some of the quiz questions over the readings. And, what is the purpose authors in writing it, if it lacks one? And again, this book does have a thesis. It's pretty easy, but still be precise. Try to find out what you think, explicitly the main statement it is they're trying to prove in this book. You need to talk about what kinds of evidence the authors provide for that thesis. And by what types, I don't just mean what types of, what things they say, but what types of documents, letters, diaries, government documents, books, novels, surveys, polls, stuff like that. What kinds of documents? Do they use images? Hint, they do. They use images, stuff like this. What kind of, do they cite other modern historians? Hint, they do. Give an idea of what they're using to back up what they're saying. So the reader can evaluate, okay, what they're doing. Again, you can't cram everything into it's 3 or 4 pages, not a lot of this stuff, but just a good sense of it. And then finally, evaluate how persuasive their argument or their account is. And this is almost more of an account, but it's pretty interesting. And like I said before, it goes into some detail. You can read the rest of this here. And you have the rating rubric there as well as with the rest of it. It's a pretty interesting book. It gives you definitely a different perspective on things. You never think of the involvement of the North, of the northern states in slavery. And again, to be my only worry is, don't let it cloud your judgment. Yes, the southern states are much more responsible for slavery than the northern ones, but it is amazing how integrated those two sections of the country, even though they come to blows, obviously in a war, still were right up to the Civil War. It's very there are a lot of well-chosen anecdotes, let's put it that way, in that book. So that is basically the course. I do have one thing. You will have an opportunity for extra credit. I haven't finished putting it together yet, but it'll be up there pretty soon. So there'll be an opportunity for that. I should have had it up by Monday. I'm traveling and leaving tonight, so I have to get this done before I go off to visit some friends. So that was the parameters of the course. Again, if you guys have any questions, please email me as soon as possible. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Get the books as soon as possible. Get started as soon as possible. And I hope you guys, it's a lot of work, a lot of reading. Hope you guys enjoy the course, get something out of it. And again, let me guys know if you have any concerns or questions or problems. And so take care. Have a great semester. And say hi if you see me on campus sometime if you're ever there. So I like people. It's okay. So take care, and hope I'll hear from you soon.